Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our September meeting of Strategy and Resources. Councillors, officers, members of the public who are attending the meeting. Please, would you switch off your mobile phones or put them to silence? There are members of the public press attending this meeting virtually. So can I please ask those attending to switch off your microphone to avoid any disruption if you're on Zoom. The meeting will be recorded and available in due course on the council's YouTube channel. Reminder for councillors to ensure those attending virtually can hear the proceedings, and for the recording to capture the entire meeting, please ensure that you project your voice and speak clearly. Please remember it's a formal meeting and therefore do not refer to each other by first names. But I'm not sure that any councillors are actually joining on Zoom, are they?
That's right.
Or Teams, I suppose. Sorry, get it right. Okay, fine. Anyway, welcome back after the summer break. I hope you, some of you at least, have had a good break this summer. I don't know where the time's gone myself, but there you go. But good to see you all in the gathering gloom. It appears this morning, but we have a different setup than usual because of our teams. So, Ariana, have we any apologies for absence, please?
Yes, Chair, I've received apologies for absence from Councillor Lane.
Thank you very much. Item number 2, to approve as the correct record the minutes of the meeting held on the 4th of July 2022, pages 7 to 30. Okay, could I please have a mover and a seconder? Moved and seconded. Did you get that, Ariana?
Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favour, please shout. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Graham, you weren't here, so you're
present. So
yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Okay. Item number 3, items brought forward, which should be considered as a matter of urgency. I know that Councillor Wilkinson has a point that he would like to raise, please.
Yeah, it's back in November, we passed a motion regarding the discharge of sewage into open sea waters and waterways. And I was absolutely delighted with the support that got, but quite obviously in the last few weeks, it's reared its head again. And I'm just asking advice, is there any way that we could reinforce the points that we made? Because I think we've got to make a stand here as well. I was listening to Radio 5 the other day, and they're interviewing somebody at Plymouth University who came up to surf at Croyd Beach, and she left the beach because of the brown effluent that was floating. Now I know that the majority of the discharges that have gone along South West Water is saying that it's down on the south coast down in Devon. But we did have an incident a lot on Northern Shores within the last few weeks. And I just don't want to let things get lost. We passed the motion, and I'm just asking advice really. Is there any way we can reinforce the points that we made? We had a letter, a response from to David, the chair's letter to the Secretary of State, DEFRA, which really didn't say an awful lot more than we knew already. I just don't want things getting left in the ether or lost in the ether.
Yeah. So when we have a meeting of the Devon councils on Wednesday this week, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to raise it there because it would be really good if Team Devon wrote to South West Water and the government basically to try and stop this happening, because I think Graham, you've done, Councillor Lofthouse has done quite a lot of research recently with Parish Councillor Graham Bauer Thornton concerning the amount that has been put into our rivers as well as the sea. So it would be good to coordinate the whole thing and see if we can get a letter from collectively from Devon.
It's very encouraging, very encouraging.
That'd be fine, thank you. I don't know whether you wanted to add anything before I come to you.
No, I think that's fine. I think, as you say, we've written as a district council, perhaps it's now appropriate to up the ante a little bit and try and encourage the other Devon authorities to act as well.
You're a bit blind if they're not doing it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Councillor Pearce.
Prior to COVID, we had the Plastic Free North Devon Consortium, which is where, I'm wondering if it's worth re-invoking that. I know there's interest with Plastic Free North Devon and indeed with the AONB, because they want to maximise their impact and not overlap. And this is something that affects everybody, the biosphere, all of us. So is this time to restart it, I think?
Yeah.
I think it would be a really good thing to do, and that would then also give more info. And also in Ilfracombe, we're looking at Builders Mouth Beach. There's a citizen science project with the company and just doing the whole 2% thing. So that would be interesting.
Thank you. Councillor Chester.
Thank you very much. Kevin, an awful lot of work has been done through the biosphere and otherwise to reduce the amount of waste from farms leading into rivers. But with it, tell you that we have an issue with our sewage system letting untreated material into the River Dart, just at the bottom of the village, and so this is right in line as far as you can get. It's not just about on the coast, but it gets there in the end, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I do support that proposal, and through Team Devon, I think we need to highlight we haven't even brainstormed through we haven't, so there's no what's the excuse, another license to allow so much out, but in times of low rainfall and low water, that's a much greater effect. And we're continuing building houses, pressure on systems. I do think that our
Thank you for that. Okay. Right, thank you, Councillor Wilkinson, for raising that. I don't know. Well, obviously this is an ongoing thing, and we will have to see how it goes with Team Devon, but we will report back to you. Okay, thank you. So declarations of interest, item 4. Have we any declarations of interest?
I've not received any, Chair, unless anyone has been allowed there.
Okay. Thank you. Item 5, to agree agenda between Part A and Part B. Well, we haven't got any Part B today, so we'll go straight on to Part A, which is number 6, call for evidence, short-term holiday lets. A very important issue as far as we are concerned, and I can hand over to you now, Ken, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. The report in front of you contains the draft response that we're suggesting be sent to the call for evidence that's been issued by DCMS. This call for evidence is asking for information and evidence from all sorts of people, not just district councils, but from the holiday trade, public, Airbnb hosts, that type of those type of people, asking for their views on certain issues to do with the short-term holiday letting market. It's been issued by DCMS, which is the Department for Culture, Media and Sport. What we need to make sure happens is that some of those housing issues that might be dealt with under a different government department are also brought to the fore as part of this response. And hopefully the draft response that's in front of you does do that. There's a series of set questions which the draft response reproduces in italics after question 1, for instance, are you able to provide us with evidence illustrating the size and nature of the short-term holiday letting market? That's the question, and then the text in normal text is the response that we're suggesting. There's about 11 or 12 questions, I think. The ones I draw your attention to are main ones, which are probably question 1, which is, as I just said, are we able to provide any evidence illustrating the size and nature of the short-term holiday letting market in our area, and how it's changed over time. We've then got question 6, whether we consider the increase in short-term and holiday letting in England to have adverse consequences on the housing market. Question 7 is about noise, antisocial or other nuisance behaviour in that sector. And question 8, which if I get to it, is asking generally, aside from the impacts on housing and issues of antisocial and nuisance behaviour, do we consider the increase to have had any other adverse impacts on the local communities and residents? So those are the main questions, I think. And you'll see from the responses what we're saying in response to question 1 about the size of the market. We're saying it's quite difficult to actually find that information out. What we hold as the district council are the numbers of second homes and also the numbers of properties that are used for holiday dwellings or holiday lets, but which are business rated. So there could well be an awful lot of properties that are still being used for Airbnb, etc., but aren't actually business rated. And it's more difficult to find that information out. And one of the things that we're suggesting as part of this is there should be some sort of register created so that we do get that information. But what we can show government is that between 2019 and 2022, the number of properties that were business rated and were used to sell catering holiday dwellings went up from 1,374 to 1,810. So that's a total of 435 properties. And that's 435 properties that largely have changed from permanent residential into holiday letting. The other highlights, I guess, are in relation to question 6. Do we consider it to have had an impact on the housing market? It's a really difficult question because lots of things have had an impact on the housing market locally, not least of which people's changing attitudes, people moving to the area for life-work balance. All of those sorts of things have an impact on the housing market. But what we can show is that we consider that the impact on the housing market is a major problem. We're particularly concerned about community cohesion in particular areas. And the list in the table shows the parishes where the percentage of the housing stock that's made up now of holiday lets and second homes is greater. So you'll see Morto and Georgian. Morto, 47% of the properties in that parish are now either second homes or holiday lets. In Georgian, it's 45%. So those are significant numbers. And they do have an impact on things like community cohesion. And in fact, one of the case studies that we've attached to the draft response is in relation to Croydon. We've also put into the draft response the increase in the number of Section 21 evictions. The members will know that these are the no-fault evictions that take place. In 2021, there were 36 in our area, and in 21-22, that had gone up to 103, so a significant increase. And there's anecdotal evidence that not all of that, but some of that is down to landlords flipping properties into holiday let rather than permanent let. But again, we can't show figures for that. All we can do is show the figures for the Section 21 eviction. During the same period, from August 19 to July 22, we can show that the average house prices in North Devon went up from £246,000 to just over £321,000, so a massive increase across our area. We've also seen an increase in the average rent from £735 a month to £775 a month. And at the same time, as we're pointing out, salaries haven't increased. So affordability levels now stand at about 15%. The question 7, about antisocial behaviour, what we've done is we've included some examples of complaints that have been received from us or to the district council over a period of time. I don't think anything speaks more loudly than actually hearing it from the complainants now. So that's the text taken from complaints that have come in. And you'll see lots of complaints around hot tub usage, loud music, etc., etc. So we've repeated those to demonstrate that we have seen an increase. And question 8, as I said, is asking whether we feel that aside from housing market and antisocial behaviour and nuisance. What other impacts there have been? And again, we've gone through some of the sort of more social impacts, I suppose. We've highlighted Georgia, where the school has struggled to maintain numbers. We've taken some text from the neighbourhood plan, which shows that one particular road within the parish of Georgia, only one dwelling is occupied in the winter. We've also talked there about the impact on the jobs market, and given a couple of examples. The local further education college, where they've struggled to recruit staff, and the specific reason for that has been lack of accommodation. So they've ended up employing somebody who has to drive 40 miles to work each day. And also there's another example of a local care home as well, which has struggled to recruit. We've also talked about the impact on people's attitudes to housing as well, because we've certainly seen during this period an increase in the number of objections to housing developments that come through. And more often than not, those objections are being submitted on the basis that this is just another development where it's going to be second homes or homes that aren't going to be affordable for people. Again, we can't correlate that with the increase in use of holiday letting, but it's certainly something that we've noticed over the last few years. As I said, we've also included a couple of case studies. Amanda's story, where it's talking about the impact on the community when too many holiday lets are in existence in a small village, and also Fiona's story, where she lost her property to a holiday let. So we've included those as well. There are obviously other questions that we've answered. The upshot of it is question 9 asks for our opinion as to what should now happen, and it gives a number of options, 6 options. We should do nothing, provide more information to the sector, develop a self-certification registration scheme, develop a registration scheme with light touch checks, develop a licensing scheme with physical checks of the premises, or go for a regulatory alternative to a registration scheme, such as an extension of the Deregulation Act 2015, which is the Act of Parliament that's in place in London. We've suggested option 5, which is developing a licensing scheme with actual physical checks of the premises. Aside from that, we're also suggesting that there should be a change in the planning legislation to ensure that if somebody wants to change a property from permanent residential to holiday let, then it should be deemed a change of use, and the application should be sent into the council. So that's it, Chair. I'm happy to answer any questions. That is the suggested response. We have until, I think it's the 20-something of September to submit the reply, 21st of September. So there is plenty of time to make some changes. And you'll see that the recommendation is to adopt or endorse that as the response, but with delegated power to myself to make any minor changes, which can get to families.
Before I come to the 3 people I've seen who've got their hands up, I'd just like to say this is really important, and thank you very much for drawing this up and bringing it to our attention, because we do need to respond, because it's a key issue as far as housing crisis in North Devon is concerned. Right, Councillor Spear, I saw you first, please.
Chair. Question 6 probably goes on last night. In the table, Braunton isn't mentioned, but I am aware that along the our little side streets, the majority of them are second homes and holiday lets. I just wondered why Braunton was not included.
Have a look at that. I'll see whether it's an error in reproduction.
Okay.
But I've got the list of parishes here, but I'll double check that.
Thank you.
Councillor David Knight.
Yeah, thank you. I'd just like to say I appreciate the concept of having a stronger response to this, because it is, I think, a massive problem, like Councillor Ward has said. The one thing, just trying to tie all the loose ends, you mentioned the planning system, but also the impact we have discussed, I think, at the litter meeting, nuisance waste from holiday lets. It gets put out at random times left in the street. But also, this waste is actually trade waste. And this, again, linking the planning to the waste system, that holiday properties and, temporary, short-term lets, these people all should have trade waste accounts or have another system for, taking waste away, particularly in the summer season. We're seeing an inverse bulge where people should actually be, if we've got residents that go away, you should see a drop. We're actually seeing an increase in waste, which NDC has to pick up. I think actually we need to tie that end up because all those properties, Councillor Spears mentioned, there's a street that most of the properties are second home or holiday lets. Well, they should all have multi-colour trade waste bins outside being collected on different days. So I think we need to close that loophole as well, because the burden on NDC picking up all that holiday waste is, I don't think it's sustainable to keep collecting that waste. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to come back or?
Just in relation to Braunton, just looking at the figures, I think it's probably because it's less than 10% in Braunton.
Is it?
Yeah, and that's because there's, a large number of properties in Braunton Parish. But I will double check it, but just looking quickly, I think it's because it's less than 10%. Just in relation to the tradeways, we have done exercises to try and bring more over onto the tradeway side. As I said, I'm pretty sure that we're not capturing them all because, we do data matching between the business rate system and the tradeway system. But there's an awful lot of holiday nets that aren't operating through the business rate system, I'm sure. But we don't know when they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you want to add to that?
Yeah, Ken actually covered most of what I was going to say. The ones that are registered as business rates that we get notified through the valuation office, we do a match with those through to the trade-based system. They don't necessarily have to have a trade-based agreement with us. We just need to make sure they have a trade-based agreement with somebody else or another provider. The ones that are still deemed as council tax, obviously there's no requirement for them to have a trade-based agreement. Obviously, that's where this new regulatory system will bring that into play. They're obviously they would then need to finally register for business rates, and then we need to do the check with the trade-based system. We do that matching, but this will hopefully enable that to go further.
That's a good point, thank you. Councillor Wilkinson, that's not good.
Thank you. I really welcome this report, Ken. I compliment you on it. Loads of good stuff in there. But obviously, we also tops the table, parish of Auto, so we're 50% in Auto and looking. And I know we harp on about regeneration, but I've always said that regeneration isn't just a financial regeneration, it's a community regeneration as well. We've got a dying community because of it. One of the things I would add to part 8 or question 8 that you've written down there, knock-on effects, is the staffing issues. That because now there's so few facilities for staff to live in the villages now at affordable rent. I mean, we're looking at £10 an hour if you're lucky anyway. But many of the businesses are struggling to get the staff to open, and I know in Woolwich that several of the restaurants and pubs, even during the peak weeks of the summer, have to close on nights during the week. That's never happened before. That's purely down to the fact that they can't get the staff. The staff also that, in the main don't have transport. The public transport system is at best poor. 5:30 is the last bus out of Woolwich. So what happens to the evening trade? They shut. And these are worrying things, I think. And I welcome one of your points there as well, Ken, about applying to the council to change of use from residential to the short-term let. This has actually just been passed in Edinburgh, isn't it? They've done this. I know it's a different government as such, but the precedent is there. So I again welcome it and power to the open.
Councillor Wilkinson, would you be able to, if we speak afterwards, would you have any specific examples that I could put into this? Because this is a call for evidence, and that's fine. Yeah, okay.
I've got it there.
Okay, we'll chat afterwards.
Thank you, good. Right.
particularly with Councillor Lyons' remarks there. I think developing a licensing system would help with ensuring that the holiday accommodation has a trade waste because we know where they are. Really benefit there. I noticed that Moustone is not on the list, but that might be because it's not over 10% holiday let, but it is one of the inland villages where you have that problem. It is quite significant. You can see the empty houses. Yeah, but it's in the internal area as well. Thank you, Chair.
Just wondering whether people on Teams can actually hear us. I haven't heard anything back from anybody to say whether they can or can.
Hi, Councillor Warden. Yes, I can hear you fairly well. It's just when Councillor Yabsley speaks sometimes, I'm just missing some of the words he's saying.
Popping again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ben. Right, Councillor Petrie. I wasn't having a go at you, but it was a general comment. Over to you.
I agree with everything everybody else has said, obviously. It's a really good response. And let's hope the government actually takes some notice of it and does something. I put it on a link to it on the Facebook group with North Devon College housing crisis to get some response. Obviously, it was favourably received. And they gave us a couple of trivial typos for the same. You haven't already seen them. But another point that people contacted me about was the fact that despite what Councillor Yatton just said, the primary problem appears to be actually around the coasts. That's on the coastal parishes, because people come there primarily for the coast, which doesn't really come out in full reference. I don't know whether I'm not saying there's no problem in that, because clearly there is, but when you look at Waterloo, Woolwich, Linton, the whole coastal strip is far more heavily hit. Which I think is the point that might be stressed.
Map might help.
Yeah.
Map might help.
There is a map that somebody sent me of it's a different data set of Airbnbs spots, which I can forward on. Right.
Okay. That's all done. Thank you.
Chair, I could come back.
Sorry, is it to kid you can or?
Yeah, to me, that's fine. Yeah.
You weren't meeting that.
I wasn't trying to undermine the problems on the coast, just to highlight that you have a few inland as well, and it is growing. Airbnb all over the place. Lots of applications, planning applications. Some are retrospective, and our panels are working hard to try and regulate that. But it is spreading, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Right, Councillor Pearson was next.
Yes, once again, fantastic response, I think. I realise you say it's by parish, but Lee, which is part of the parish of Ilfracombe, is actually at about 40%. And I think they should be included really. But in terms of cause for evidence, one of the interesting things about the proliferation of Airbnbs has been the proliferation of cleaning companies or cleaning organisations that have sprung up. I think we've got 3 or 4 on the high street, around the high street in Ilfracombe. We had a big hoarding, found temp cleaners. I think you've probably seen it up in Waterloo as well. Just left on the side of the road, cleaners wanted. So across the patch, part of the evidence of the proliferation, if you will, is the fact that these have not only sprung up, but they can't get the staff to staff them.
Joe, I can look at the Lee issue. The data that we've got is by parish, so it might be difficult to separate it out to subparts of that parish. But what we can do is we can make the point that in some of those parishes, there might be areas which are much more concentrated, and we can use Lee perhaps as an example.
Yeah, I mean, Lisa, in some ways, to go through it.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Knight.
Yeah, it's just coming back to that waste issue, but it's actually the legality. Quite often we've had some issues of people putting household waste in public litter bins, and they say, well, it's a bin, isn't it? It doesn't matter. But obviously there are legalities for every type of bin, and it's just, I know we can't police the issue, but again, coming back to tying all those loopholes up, making people aware that if you are in a holiday business, well, it may be illegal to use that bin as household waste because it's not household waste.
Yeah,
it's commercial waste, and making people aware of that situation. Because we may have people that come forward and go, oh, actually, I didn't realise, I've got a trade-based account or something, we may actually do it by cajoling instead of policing the issue.
Brad is waiting at the back there patiently for his item, and I'm pretty sure that the sort of code of practice that he's drawn up for holiday letting probably covers waste, I think, doesn't it, Brad?
Not sure whether it delves down into specifics, as I said, but it probably covers.
Yeah.
Especially.
Yeah, so that will be covered and highlighted. The intention, as Fred will explain, the intention of that code of practice is to go to holiday let owners, and that will highlight the issue of their trade laws.
And of course, if number 5 is adopted and under question 9, that can be part of that as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, Councillor Pearson.
Just very quickly on the back of that, it might be worth a bit of signage occasionally, certainly in hotspots. Explaining it's a criminal offence. It's actually a criminal offence to define it. And that includes putting in a rubbish in domestic uses. And so, I mean, we are looking at signage as part of this, so maybe it's something we can put out there.
Okay, well, we've had a good discussion on this now. We have a recommendation on page 31. Are we happy to pass this recommendation? If so, would somebody kindly move it? Councillor Brynsworthy, seconding. Councillor Pearson. Okay, thank you. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you for that, bringing that forward, because that is, as we've said, very important for us. Right, so we move on to item number 7. I think Tony's going to present that. Is that right?
Yeah, I am, Chairman.
You're in position already. So it's our performance and financial management in Q1.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Good morning, members. I'm here to present the Q1 performance report. The recommendations of the report are detailed in 2.1 to 2.6, and these are on page 51 of the pack. Firstly, I'd like to talk through our revenue budget position. The forecast budget surplus as at Q1 is currently a £3,000 surplus. Variances making up this small surplus are shown in Appendix A, and these are detailed on page 59. Temporary accommodation is under additional cost pressures. We are currently forecasting £120,000 adverse variance in the year. But within the year, we've mitigated this from a contribution from the homelessness earmark reserve. The largest variance within Appendix A is the £804,000 for the potential National Pay Award. This is over and above the £280,000 already built into the base budget. Pay award is based on £1,925 for all full-time equivalents. Other inflationary pressures include the fuel costs across our fleet, which are currently estimating to be £198,000, and additional energy costs at £63,000. In light of the above costs, we've managed to achieve a pretty much break-even position this year by utilising the whole of the budget management reserve, which gives us a one-off in-year contribution of £936,000. For 23-24 onwards, we won't have this one-off protection, and the inflationary pressures experienced this year will exacerbate the 23-24 budget gap. We're still waiting for confirmation of the award of costs in relation to the Yelling planning appeal, so at this stage we haven't provided for this cost within the figures and will be covered by a separate report to members. Borrowing as at the 30th of June was £3 million, and estimated year-end earmark reserves balances are detailed in Appendix B on pages 61 and 62. So moving on to the capital programme, we have overall variations of minus £783,000 proposed to the 22-23 capital programme. These are detailed in 4.3 of your report. The majority of these relate to disabled facility grants where there are slippages to 23-24. These changes take the 22-23 capital programme to 18.7 million. The spend as at the 30th of June was just under 2 million. revised capital programme for 22-23 to 24-25 now stands at just over 27 million and is funded by capital receipts and borrowing of 11.1 million, external grants and contributions of 13.6 million, and reserves of nearly 2.3 million. Revised capital programme detailing all the schemes can be found in Appendix D on pages 67 to 70. Treasury management, debt management and general debtors are detailed in sections 4.5 to 4.7, and the service planned actions and KPIs are detailed in Appendix E. That concludes the presentation of the Q1 report. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Who would like to be first?
Can we go, I'll just ask about the grant bigger slippage. It's quite a big one. Is it about the lack of the qualified firms to do the work, or is it that we're being a bit tight on what we pay them? Is that an unfair question for Jeremy?
I think it's, Chair, it's deliverability. I think there are obviously less contractors out there. Certainly the team are going out to get 3 quotes. A lot of the time they're not coming back with 3 quotes. A lot of the time we're getting them 2 quotes or even only 1 quote. So, and that generally is the same provider. So there's only so much in terms of workforce out there. Jeremy and Wendy and the team are looking at quicker ways in terms of throughput to get those awards done a lot quicker, working with our partners as well in terms of North Devon Homes and using their contractors. So they are looking at ways of trying to speed up the process. I think part of the reason some of the spend is moving into next year is we've got a higher demand in North Devon compared to a lot of the other districts. We tend to spend our allocation a lot quicker. A lot of the other Devon districts underspend on their allocation, and then some of that money is redistributed. So Wendy and the team have been successful in getting money reallocated from other Devon districts. So our overall pot has grown, but that means that some of that pot has to move into later years. So it is a combination of effects, but the team are trying their hardest to get the deliverability of it.
Can I ask something? Is it worth therefore looking at some sort of exclusive deal with a firm rather than tendering each one individually?
Fortunately, we have to go through the procurement rules in terms of going out for quote. If there's any way of being able to fasten that process up. So we are limited in terms of the process. They say that may be a solution. You could just have an exclusivity with one provider, but generally we do end up pretty much with the same provider anyway because we are going out for quotes. If we're not getting the 3 quotes, we have to do a waiver, and the ones I'm seeing generally are the same provider anyway. It's just trying to see whether there are ways we can get that process quickened up so that it's making the deliverability of quicker.
I think it's not a criticism of the prospect. Just we have been successful at getting the money. Make sure we use it to help people because it's pretty grim when somebody's spread over the way for a long time.
It'd be useful, we can get some numbers back to members in terms of the number of applications and deliverability from Wendy and the team, so at least you get the success rate that we're happy achieving.
Councillor Knox.
Thank you, Chair. I have a number of questions. On 4.1.3, savings that we've had by virtue of being unable to fill vacancies, and therefore being unable to provide 100% service, which happens especially in the waste department. Is the action that we've taken more or less cost effective? Because we've saved on salaries, but it's cost us more because we haven't got people in various areas. Like for instance, I mean, if we had to bring in additional staff on the waste side, we don't regularly.
So the figures in 413 are the net saving that takes into account once we have brought in additional staff, such as agency staff. So, for example, if in waste recycling we've got a vacant post and we can't fill it, we will then fill it with agency staff. So the savings in 413 are predominantly timelines in terms of when a post becomes vacant. Timeline, then you don't automatically get somebody in straight away in some posts in the organisation. Some services we can't afford to do that. We can't say, okay, we're not going to have a waste and recycling operative because we have to bring somebody in immediately, otherwise that ends up with misconnection. So that's where we tend to use the agency staff. Savings we're seeing in 4.1.3 are where posts become vacant, such as planning and housing. There may be a time lag in terms of replacing that post, and that's where the savings come down. So it's savings we see every year. because we do budget for vacancy savings, because we know we're never going to replace those posts immediately. Last year we saved around 320,000. This year we're budgeting around 40 million, so it is lower. But there are always time delays in terms of getting the post filled.
But presumably where we've got, if you take specific posts, where we've had to have agency staffing, then that's not as cost effective as us having had the employee in place.
Correct, yeah, because obviously the agency rate tends to be the same salary that we will pay them here, but obviously there is an agency plus the top.
Yeah.
That's why we try to keep the agency usage as a minimum. But obviously there are some posts where we do bring agency staff in to cover things such as annual leave and sickness within the same, the rest of the staff team.
I'm thinking about what number, yeah, very on, right? But on the next section, talking about 1.4, it's likely that we're going to have to anticipate more homelessness demand due to the rising cost of living. How can we alleviate this? Is the council allowed to borrow to buy buildings to meet the need? How will this affect any government support? Does that increase or does it reduce because we've taken action?
So yes, that cost is likely to be continuing. I think it ties in a little bit to the last report we had on the agenda as well, in terms of the availability of properties, in terms of the rented market as well. And certainly that's where we've seen an increased use of B&B properties. We have already purchased some properties. So about 3 years ago, council approved us to borrow £1 million to buy temporary accommodation properties, our own assets. That's been successful, and that's alleviated some of the pressure we've seen over the last 2 to 3 years. We are looking at doing more of that. So the recent budget workshop we had with members, we have started to look at ways we can try and alleviate the revenue budget pressure in the future. One of those options is to look at third properties. So at the moment, it's very costly to put homeless people into bed and breakfast accommodation, and also into, say, hotel rooms. It's also not ideal for their own well-being as well. It's much better if we can provide them with a proper property that's got the amenities they need. So members will be looking at that moving forwards to see if there are ways we can then borrow more money, buy more houses, and alleviate that pressure as part of the budget setting process for next year.
Thank you. On 4.1.7 this year, we've got 261,000 extra for the fuel. Obviously, that's something that at the moment we're struggling with time to get around. And we've looked at the possibility, certainly on smaller vehicles, of having electrified vehicles. Presumably that would help reduce the cost, and in particular, we go ahead with installing some form of solar energy here to produce our own. So, are we able to, with our leasing contract, we have to lease all the vehicles, or are we able to actually take action to small vehicles to actually borrow and buy those and fuel them ourselves?
The ongoing leasing arrangement does incorporate moves to electric vehicles as well. So that is incorporated as part of that ongoing arrangement.
Right.
The key is looking at the business case behind it, because obviously at the moment, the leasing costs are based on us continuing with the existing type of fleet. If we move to electric vehicles, obviously they are more costly in terms of vehicle cost at the moment, then the savings do come about in terms of the reduced fuel costs. But we need to then look at the business case around, okay, what will the electricity cost? Because obviously at the moment, the electricity and utility costs obviously are going up, but that's where providing our own energy will obviously then help that in terms of being able to reduce and mitigate that. So the whole infrastructure business case needs to be looked at, but that is something that Mark and Donna are working on, and it's something that will be brought forward to members as part of this moving. So we just need to see the numbers behind that to make sure that whilst the infrastructure isn't, say, fully 100% there at the moment, we need to make sure it stacks up financially and we're not sort of storing up more costs at the early stage.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
That's okay. Anyone else got any points they want to raise? it's good that we're in balance for the first quarter, but going forward, we have some major expenses and we have to cope with. So it's not going to be easy, is it? If there are no other questions or points, can we please adopt the recommendations found on page 51, 2.1 to 2.6? Would somebody like to move?
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Loftus, secondly, Councillor Wilkinson. Okay, all those in favour, please show. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Tony. Brilliant. Okay, so we move now to item number 8.
Yeah, can we take item 8 and item 10 together? Because they seem to need to be. Or at least one after the other.
Well, 8,
9, 10,
yeah, we will be taking them in that order. Yeah. I can understand possibly 10 and 12 being
Sorry,
together.
sorry, sorry. It should have been 6.
All right. Let's go to item 8 then, home loan policy. I think Wendy, you're going to speak to this one, is that right?
Yes, good morning. Good morning, Chair and members. I'll say I'm Wendy Slate, Service Lead for Home Adaptations, Improvements and Energy Efficiency. The report presented today is to seek your approval for our revised home loan policy. We've worked in partnership with Lendology since 2005, following a successful consortium bid, and obviously we want to provide loans to residents in North Devon. The current policy has 5 loan types with various eligibility criteria and caps on the amount that's available up to £10,000. What we found is obviously that the loan take up is reasonable, but obviously we felt that it could be improved. A lot of the feedback from officers and representatives from Lendology is that some of the eligibility and the caps of obviously excluding some people. So we did a review of the policy, obviously taking into account other policies of part of the consortium. And we've obviously streamlined the policy. So we've gone from 5 loan types down to 3. With an overarching aims really is into support the increase of supply of housing, either for rent or sale, and improving housing standard stroke energy efficiency. So the 3 loan types are the commercial conversion, empty homes and homeowners loans. Sitting under the home ownership loans, we've added some new types of loan, which is what we call a light loan. So the majority of loans have a minimum of £1,000, but the light loan is for between 500 and 1,000. What Lendology have indicated that they've had seen an increase in people that are wanting just to have a very small quick loan, obviously to assist them, and certainly obviously in the current climate that's been useful. We've also introduced a bulky fuel loan, and again that's for £1,000 for a maximum of 12 months, and there's a 0% rate on that one. As I say, there is a minimum loan of £1,000, excluding the light loan. We've actually removed the maximum amount. So what will happen is the Lendology officers will discuss individual circumstances, establish obviously their financial position, and obviously what they're trying to achieve. Obviously, if we're looking to do a large commercial conversion, it may be that they're wanting to do more, financials on those for a longer period or shorter period. So we're hoping that there's obviously the flexibility to provide that. As I say, so we're obviously seeking approval to review our loan policy. And if anybody has any questions, please ask.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. Anyone got any questions, or are we happy with the report?
It's an excellent idea, Chair. Yeah, and we need to promote it as widely as possible.
Okay, so are you happy then to move the recommendation?
I am.
Okay. And that's seconded, councillor Longhouse, councillor Petrunas. So all those in favour, please show. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Wendy. That was
Thank you.
short and sweet.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So that's good. Okay, let's move then on to item number 9, which is the progress report to Barnstable flooding event. Andy Cole, I thought was going to present that. Is he on the line or is somebody else going to
I
present
didn't
it?
have a request from him to join that, actually, Chair, so I've heard nothing from him
Okay.
as to his whereabouts. I'm sorry.
We'll move on, Chairman, I'll find out what's.
Would you just
Come back to the item.
Yeah, we'll come back to that one then. Thank you. So we go on to item number 10, which is sustainable events guidance, which is page 103. Which
Mark's just getting.
Mark?
Chairman, I'll just get thrown up because I thought.
Yeah,
I
you
thought you
get it
on
from
this,
yeah.
this report about this, so.
I'm just wondering whether we go on to Fred's item. It might be an idea to do Fred. If you like, he's here, so let's do that. Let's go on to item 11, operating in considerable holiday let charge. Thank you. Considerate holiday let charging. Is it right?
Morning, Chair.
Morning.
Okay, well, moving on from Ken's item, I noticed that one of the options from the government is to provide guidance to holiday letting. Well, this charter aims to do that. Okay, so to provide guidance and advice to anyone who lets out whole properties or rooms for short stay lettings, provide information about the relevant laws that may apply to short-term holiday let providers, to explain the potential pitfalls of non-compliance, to tackle short-term holiday let nuisance issues, and to try to persuade homeowners to switch from short stay to permanent residential lets. So that's the aim of this charter. You know, short-term holiday lets are usually used differently to properties that are lived in permanently, and this can have an impact on immediate neighbours. Neighbours and the community affected by responsible short stay lets also report being affected by issues such as poor waste management, excessive noise, reduced sense of community and security from high turnover of guests at all times of day and night, targeted abuse when trying to address issues such as noise directly with guests, sleep deprivation from homes being used as party venues or by large groups of individuals. This includes outdoor noise. The charter aims to encourage homeowners and operators to adopt best practice and comply with the law. Collaborated with the UK Short-Term Accommodation Association to draft this charter, which initially based its works with Westminster City Council to produce a considerate nightly letting charter. So this is on the back of Westminster City Council's work in the same vein. We consulted with the North Devon and Norwich House and Crosses Group and welcomed its positive contribution and feedback. We intend to contact homeowners who provide short stay holiday lets to request that they consider switching their lets to permanent residential. And we'll use council tax data and business rates data to identify short-term holiday lets and we'll provide a copy of this charter to those homeowners. Charter will be available on our website and may be useful in supporting evidence when considering enforcement action to remedy any nuisance. The Short-Term Accommodation Association has offered to publicise the charter nationally to promote best practice and increase awareness.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. It looks very good to me. But any comments anybody wants to make? Or are we happy to adopt it?
Very good, excellent piece of work.
Yeah.
That was crossed, eh?
Chair, what Fred didn't say was that he's consulted with the housing crisis group and they're fully behind this as well, aren't they?
Yeah, I did read that out. Yeah, and they were very.
Did mention it.
Yeah.
They made positive comments.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were very supportive, yeah.
Good, excellent. Could I have a mover then to adopt this, because I think it's really good. Yes, we've got councillor Wilkinson, councillor Yabsley. Okay, all those in favour? Yeah, that's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Right. So we've got Donna here now, so that's great. So thank you, Donna, if we could go back to the item that you're presenting to us, which is item 10.
Yeah, morning, everybody. This is just really for information. The council have been working with Plastic Free North Devon and with Torrance District Council and with the climate groups just to produce some simple guidance on how to run sustainable events that the licensing teams can use in both councils. It's been through numerous iterations and consultations. It's had lots of comments from lots of different people. I think we've got it to the point now that everyone's as happy as they can be with it. So it's going to be a web document that Torridge are designing at the moment. I'm sorry, I haven't got the web document to sort of show to you. So it's really it went to senior management team for approval, and they asked that it came to SNR just so that you're aware that it was being published. So that's this paper is really just for information to let you know that that's what we've done. That's it.
That's it. Another one, short and sweet. Any points anybody wants to raise?
Other it formalises our approach to the way that events will be run with regards to waste and recycling and so on, and disposable plastics, rather than it being piecemeal. So I welcome the fact that it's been put forward and would propose the adoption.
For us, just to note it basically, so,
Well,
but thank you.
Propose it, isn't it?
Okay. All those in favour? Thank you very much, Donna.
Brilliant, thank you.
Okay. So actually, we're going on to number 12 now, wasn't it? So this is event waste and recycling management. So Mark's doing this one.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. Yeah, this follows on quite nicely, I think, from Donna's report. Again, it's fairly straightforward. As the report says, I think historically, we haven't actually had a pricing structure specifically for events, but we get lots of requests to help with events. The problem with us not having a formal approach is that historically, some events are done or have been done free of charge, and the expectation is that that will continue. And then other events, I can think of one, Got the Green Man. They were charged because they asked for lots of specific recycling bins, which was good to see in line with kind of Donna's report, which was just presented. But they were paying over £1,000 for the provision of our waste management of that event. So this report really, you'll see in the appendix, is just some prices that we have been imposing, but we just want to formalise that as our pricing structure for events. So I would ask that members approve that we adopt that policy then for that pricing.
Councillor Pearson, thank you.
Yes, I think we should have a system like this. However, I'd like to know what the policy is about what specifically we expect to be recycled at events. I was quite surprised to find that we don't do food recycling, for example. We don't collect or provide food bins, when a lot of the time our events have waste food from food vendors. So I'd like to know why.
I think it's policing is a really big one for us. We look at Hilton Green Man, for example. There were lots and lots of food vendors there, but it's actually better for everyone concerned if those vendors manage the food waste themselves, if there is going to be food waste recycling. If
if we're just moving container food waste that aren't policed properly, we just have a massive contamination issue and it's with black. Just go for incineration.
Indeed, there were people around, and they don't really can was, that would, depends how on the size of the event. So,
It does, and obviously our food waste containers are, you know, it's all aimed at domestic market, so to start doing that next, I think it's not a quick fix. I think this is a first step really, just to try and bring our house in order so that we are being consistent and we're not favouring one event over the other. But going forward, if we continue to get demand, we'd have to look at, you know, look at the detail of collecting food waste from events, but it is complicated. And I think, as ever, any event that is trying to recycle, or even just collecting normal recycling, it just takes one or two people to lob some food waste in with a plastic glass, and that contaminates the whole load. And you know, it's actually not doing anyone any service. It's better if people take all their waste home from the events and stick it in there.
I actually observed somebody walking up to a bin with a label on top, label on the front. Didn't even look, just picked up, put rubbish in, and that was the recycling. Not rubbish bin.
Unfortunately, that's a normal thing.
On recycling, I mean, in order to encourage, do we want to encourage recycling? I mean, obviously, people monitoring, in which case, have we not make it cheaper to rent recycling receptacles? Obviously, with the proviso that if it's mixed, contaminated, they would pay the costs.
Yeah, you'll see in the instruction next to that, sorry, councillor Gibson, that the with non-recyclable bins, there's a delivery charge as well. So there's a charge on top for taking that away. With the recycling bin, it is just a flat rate, although it's higher for an 1100, for example. There's no delivery charge attached to that, so it does work out cheaper. But obviously, we sell the recyclers on and get an income from it. So we are trying to encourage recycling and pricing. And we've taken those prices from animal trade waste.
Yeah, I mean, I just welcome any continuity in delivering services. Good first base, but yeah, I think that's the first base. I'd like to see maybe in 6 months when that's been sort of rolled out, we actually maybe progress some sort of structure in recycling and how we're going to do that. Because obviously we do need to promote recycling, but obviously just get that continuity in place first, and then maybe it needs to come back 6 months or something to actually then say, right, what is the second move? What do you want to try and progress? But certainly, yes, at events where there's 30 vendors all selling food, well, then the event organizer needs to come up with a strategy to not have all that food waste mixed together. And it's a constant battle. I appreciate that it's progress there, and I'm trying to get things done, but yeah, I think we do need to then bring it back for a second chunk.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said. I think, and it's probably another meeting outside of this, something perhaps we can discuss in the workshops. But yeah, we are committed to more recycling. But the reality is, we are struggling now just to manage our existing domestic recycling rates. There's been a lot of talk this morning about holiday lets, and as we've just seen through the summer, it's putting a massive pressure on our everyday recycling rounds. We are struggling to cope with it. The agency can't provide us with drivers because they're not there at the moment. So it is very difficult. So it is all hands to the pump on domestic recycling at the moment. So yes, it's great to have some ambitions, but we've got to be realistic about what we can actually do with the current resources provided.
Thank you. Thank
you, Chairman. I'll try and speak up. Yeah, getting quite a bit of grief at the moment locally because we're not dealing with our collections in an efficient way as we would like to. And so I sympathise with you understand, but please, both of you, there's a message got out from Ken, great, thank you. But I believe there was a slightly different message went to the clerk that goes out, and she's giving me new rate because we're not quite in tune, so can I ask you to just ensure that you send the same message out, please? That would be helpful. I haven't read the messages, so I don't know, but I got a real earful on Saturday from the lady, and she's very good, but she's quite noisy.
All I can say is the messages were
It's on
consistent.
the
So,
wrong, she didn't have that.
don't know what she said.
Can I point you to 4.1 and the 400,000 and a little more explanation perhaps, please? There seems to me to be an opportunity there to save some money or not spend some money if we are collecting and then selling the waste on, but it's still costing us £500,000 nearly. We could be paying more for the service, so that we are actually not spending taxes money. John's looking very private behind.
If you like.
Yeah, so we have to pay the disposal of commercial waste. So that is incorporated in the charge that we charge our trade waste customers. So it is already part of the cost model. So once we strip out some of the sort of non-food accounting charges, the trade waste service does stacks up and covers its own costs in terms of the income we get. What we need to do is obviously look to grow that business as we move forward, so obviously make it a positive financial contribution to the council as part of the things we're discussing in the budget workshop recently about the ongoing budget measures.
Sorry, I missed that.
So it's important that obviously where we are, if we are commercial waste, and obviously through these events, that additional cost is then paid for, whereas before they may not have been charged, or they may have been charged at a lower level. The wider trade waste budget then is picking up that additional cost of disposing things. That's why it's important this pricing structure going forwards, so it recovers that cost of us disposing the actual commercial waste.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Okay, any other points anybody wants to raise? Okay, well, it looks as though, yeah, thank you. There we go. Did you get that? That was Councillor Pearson and Councillor Loftus, I saw. Moved and seconded. All those in favour? Okay, that's unanimous again. Thank you very much, Mark. Okay. So, I think we have Katie at the back. So can we move on to item 13? Okay, which is proposed amendments to the council's existing amenity standards, minimum room utilizing and management standards document. That's about full.
Yeah, indeed. Good morning. I've got my colleague, Tanisha Raz, that's one of her first meetings, so you have to be gentle with her, but she's led on this bit of work and done a great job getting us where we are with the policy. And there's a few amendments that we wanted to make to it to increase clarity into a number of things, make some minor changes. I'm going to hand over to Tanisha just to give you a short overview, if that's okay.
Yeah, super.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we present for you members this report with the main purpose being to feedback on the 6-week consultation exercise which ran between the 8th of June and the 20th of July 2022 in respect of the proposed revisions to the amenity standards document. Consultation was previously approved at former strategy and resources committee meeting on the 9th of May 2022. Correspondence with details of the consultation was sent to all estate agents and management companies and licence holders who own or manage licensed HMOs in North Devon as per our register, and a press release was also published. 6 individuals completed the consultation in total, with 1 respondent's comments redacted. Responses to the consultation were mixed and proved highly useful. A number of key themes do exist in terms of the consultation feedback. For example, making wording clearer to understand and to reduce confusion. As such, definitions and wording within the amenity standards document were amended in line with the comments made. For example, this included making a slight amendment to our position surrounding the sharing of bedrooms, whereby at the previous committee meeting, we suggested that only one household should actually share a bedroom. However, as we don't want to exclude any tenants from accessing accommodation due to the high demand for housing at present, we've amended this slightly to cite that no more than one household shall occupy any room used for sleeping accommodation, except where the individuals are known to each other and consent to share a bedroom. However, no more than 2 persons may occupy any room regardless of size under any circumstances. Various other comments and amendments were also made, and these can be viewed in appendices A and B. In addition to the consultation, we have also since had a query in respect of our requirements of basic DBS checks on application for an HMO licence. Council currently requests that basic DBS check for both proposed licence holder and manager are required as part of the person test. We currently request that the basic DBS disclosure submitted is dated within the previous 6 months, as this time period is in the current DBS check required for residential caravan site licensing. We recommend that this remains at 6 months at this time to ensure consistency with other residential licensing areas. In respect of the query relating to this requirement, the council will ask by a management company if we would accept a DBS check which was recently expired and was outside of the 6-month timeframe requirement, as we have previously accepted this for a number of other applications submitted to the same applicant when the DBS was in date. However, whilst we appreciate some landlords and management companies own and manage large portfolios of properties, and they only have a number of applications to submit annually, at this time, we propose that DBS checks and the timeframe requirement remain the same for all proposed licence holders and managers to ensure consistency across our licensing areas. And as such, a DBS check dated within the previous 6 months will be requested for all proposed licence holders and managers, no matter how many applications submitted and the size of their property portfolios. Now, further to this, we now ask members to consider and approve the following recommendations outlined at 2.1. So, to consider the feedback on the results of the public consultation exercise contained within Appendix B, adopt the newly amended amenity standards, minimum room sizing and management standards document in Appendix A, dated August 2022, and finally consider the current timeframe period relating to DBS checks for an application for an HMO licence. But the main reason for these recommendations being to increase the robustness of the council's licensing standards and procedures going forward. And now I finally welcome any questions you might have.
Very well, you said it. That's it. Anyone want to raise any issues or ask any questions? I think we're all very happy to report. Thank you very much. So, could I have a mover then for recommendations 2.1 and 2.3? I've got Councillor Spear and Councillor Knight. All those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Now we've got Jeremy's going to do Andy Coles and
Yeah.
Go back then to
Item 9.
item 9. Thank you. So Brynsworthy. Event. 20. Oh, welcome, Jeremy.
Morning, Kev. I'm delighted to present this report. Disappointed in a way that Andy's not here because Andy Cole has done some sterling work. I think the council's done some sterling work in taking a community leadership role following the horrendous flooding in Barnstaple. The council commissioned a third party to undertake some surveys of the drains around part of Lower Stickle Path. The survey work identified a variety of defects, deficiencies in the system. The council's made representation to South West Water, representation to Devon County Council. And the upshot of this is both the County Council and South West Water have committed themselves to investment in the infrastructure, which will hopefully reduce the risk moving forward. And where the council identified specific faults with individual household systems, those householders have been written to, and hopefully that will further improve the situation moving forward. So it was a very unfortunate incident. So that incident was previously reported to your committee, but I think the timeliness and the level of support provided by the council in seeking to reduce the risks moving forward it's been a good thing, and it's nice for us to be able to present this paper by way of an update for you this morning.
Thank you. Now, we've got two councillors from the particular area that you've mentioned, so councillor Loftus first.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think it's a very good report. Andy Cole's assistance with Devon County Council and South West was paid off. First of all, I would say it wasn't for the initiation of the whole thing by myself and Councillor Knight, we probably wouldn't be where we are now. And then obviously bringing in us, but it's not our responsibility. But as a service to the community, we've actually got some action. And so that's really pleasing. It's not finished, of course, because South West Water have said that they've allocated the budget for permanent work. This is like a temporary solution. This seems to have done the job at the moment. But we do need to do a bit more work, and you're probably aware, in trying to encourage more of those people that have defects to take up the offer of Devon County Council's funding and for future events, because they're highly likely. And it's an area we must make sure is protected when we consider all the extra developments that are likely to be that particular bank of the river. So, yeah, our thanks, Andy. Good point.
Yeah, I'd just like to, echo Councillor Loftus's comments, that the council went open above board its responsibilities and understood the actual gravity of the situation, and his persuasion, I think, persistent persuasion in getting the other agencies to communicate with each other instead of finger pointing, which was an awful lot of finger pointing at the start. But yeah, we have got some great success there. But one of the things, just again to close the circle, and it's quite fortuitous that we have, is that one of the situations is we have a current aging sewage system, and obviously I was new to this a couple of years ago, and I've now sat on planning committee and sat at parish councils and looked at planning applications. Quite often a comment on a residential planning application, you have a large roof extension, and the comment on drainage is that water will go into the normal system that's there. So if every house has an increase in roof area, that water at the top of the hill only goes down one way and it ends up at the bottom. I would like to see stronger response of planning or residential planning applications that almost by default they must address an increase in water, because as we have more and more properties, that sewage system is connected together. Obviously on the new developments we have attenuation basins, but on all of the stuff that's pre-built, all of that sewage system is connected together. And quite often at Torscock Parish Council we send things back saying, well, there's no comment even what's happening to surface water. All the comment comes back, it will go to the not septic tank, the soakaway, which was built in the 1950s. Well, the soakaway that's built in the 1950s will not take the water. What will happen is the water will go down the tube and it will just come up and it will end up more surface water. So I think we need to close that maybe in the conversation at a later date, because I can point out some applications and say, oh yeah, there's no response on that surface water, on mitigating increase in surface water, because obviously we need to uphold our end. We're not responsible for sewers per se, but actually in the planning system we need to tighten our belts. And if it rains more, then there's only more water in there. It only goes one way. I've never seen water flow uphill unless it's pumped. It normally goes. Thank you.
When you come back,
Chairman, just say Andy's managed to join us now as well.
Oh, I see.
So if there are any questions.
Chair, I think that's a really valid point. There are lots of combined sewers in North Devon, in our towns. And it would be quite appropriate for us to look at impacts on the loading of those combined sewers in relation to modifications to existing properties happy to take that away as an action from today's meeting.
Yeah, thank you. Andy, I don't know whether you wanted to add anything. I think Jeremy's done a good job in.
I've taken all your thanks for your efforts, so.
Yeah, no, thank you. Apologies for not joining until now. Obviously, I haven't heard the discussion, but yeah, what I heard about the combined sewer actions, as Jeremy just mentioned, that's absolutely irrelevant, relevant, not irrelevant, for us to take away as an action for sure. But yeah, so nothing specific to add, but happy to answer any queries that might have come up before I joined.
I think we're at the stage where we can say thank you to you, Andy, for actually the work that you've done, and also thank you to the two ward councillors who initiated this whole thing. You know, I think we're actually making progress. So thank you very much to the concern. Councillor.
Sorry, just stepping back a bit to the point that was made earlier on about the increased water discharge with enlarging properties and roof sizes and that. Could you also add into that campsites? Because campsites now are increasing in size and they're increasingly getting these hard standings, which attracts water, it doesn't drain, and the sewage systems and water disposal systems in, particularly in where I live, are Victorian to say the least. Can't take it.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. Okay, thank you very much. We need to note the report, that's which is recommendation 2 on page 97. Are we all happy to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jeremy, for coming in.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Right, so we come to a really nice item to end our meeting today. Yes.
Sorry, should have, Councillor and I myself should have shown an interest in one of the items here, with both parish councils until stop.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Right, item 14 then, back to you, Mark, please.
Good Chairman. Yeah, as you say, it's a nice one to end on, I guess.
Yeah.
This is just a report to allocate 106 funding for 7 different projects across Barnstable, Langley and Tavistock. So the recommendation is just to grow the capital programme by just under £278,000, and that funds are released for each project subject to funding agreements approved by the senior solicitor.
Good. I think there'll be some happy people when we actually pass this in a minute, which are anticipating that we're all in favour of.
Yeah.
Would somebody like to move it? Councillor Knight. Okay. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Thank you much. Nice way to finish the meeting this morning. Thank you very much.